Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome to a new episode of StarCraft II Study. And I know what the Zerg players are thinking right now. You're thinking like, what? You're looking at a Protoss player? What's going on right here? And yeah, I'm going to be honest. Normally I would always do Zerg builds and Zerg StarCraft II Study episodes, but right now I've been watching quite a lot of PartinG play of Zerg, or Protoss versus Zerg I should say. And he has been doing this really cool strategy. If you don't know it just yet, it's an Immortal Sentry push. Which he claims that he wins 80, he won 80 games in practice and lost absolutely 0. So it's going to be a 3-part episode of StarCraft II Study, and in this part we are just going to talk about the general stuff in Protoss versus Zerg, also kind of a Zerg point of view. And the second episode we are going to take a look on how to execute the build order exactly, and in the third episode we will take a look at how to engage when you have your big ass army moving across the map. So in this episode we are just going to talk about the basics and no in-depth strategy or whatsoever. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about PartinG. Now PartinG is this Protoss player that actually, last weekend he actually won, I think it's the biggest cash prize that was ever given away in a StarCraft II tournament. He won $100,000 of Korean won, which I really don't know how much the Korean that is, or Korean currency or whatever it is. But he won a lot of money, and that also included doing this build order. So right now, PartinG has been doing this build for a few months right now, if I'm not mistaken. And like I already mentioned, he claims that it's completely unbeatable, and that as long as you do it good, there's really no way you will ever lose with it. And he did lose a few games in the last few weeks with it. Specifically in the GSL, he lost a bunch of games with it. But in general, it's a really solid build order, and he wins at least at this point like 98% of the games with it. So let's talk a little bit why it is so strong. Now, there's a few things that you have to realize about Protoss versus Zerg. Now, lately, pretty much all Zerg players, as you can also see Sen doing in this game, are going for a really quick second base as well as a really quick third base around the 4-minute and 15-second mark, sometimes a little bit later, sometimes a little bit earlier. But 3 base play is really standard right now for the Zerg player, simply because the Protoss player has almost no way to counter this at all. So the one thing that Protoss players have been doing lately is just going for a Nexus first themselves, and this way they will be at least on equal economic advantage as their opponent, the Zerg player. But you know, Zerg has been responding by simply getting a third base really early on, especially after seeing the natural going down for the Protoss player. So Zerg has been doing a lot of 3-base attacks and a lot of 3-base timings, and the way Zerg deals with just going with 3 bases is simply by droning up as hard as they can. Zerg is always trying to get up as many drones as they can, as well as many queens early on, and trying to delay their attack as much as they can, because more drones means a bigger amount of income, and more income means that you can produce a bigger army in the same amount of time than you would usually be able to. So Zerg players are always trying to get as many drones up as possible, and normal Protoss timings, excluding this one, 2 base timings that is, are actually coming a little bit too late. Those timings are actually coming right after the Zerg has full saturation up, after he gets 4 gases going, as well as sometimes a macro hatchery, and he's just at lair. Roach speed is most of the time already almost done, as well as Zergling speed, and all the Protoss timing pushes are just too slow. So you know, the way that Protoss players used to deal with this lately is by simply just playing passive, because they know that they really can't do too much pressure, and there's really no guarantee that they can kill them. So what Protoss players have been doing, like 70% of the games, is actually going for a relatively early third base, which once again will put them completely passive, which allows the Zerg player to go for a third and fourth base, as well as stacking up to Infestus and Brood Lords and whatnot. So doing this push that PartinG has been doing lately, he can basically just make sure that the Zerg player has no chance of actually going for 4 or 5 bases, because he actually pushes right before the big army comes out for the Zerg player. So this push is, for me, it's really exciting, because it will actually put the game quite a bunch forward. So the reason why the build order is so strong is because it will simply push before the entire Zerg arsenal of units is out on the map. Now, it is important to note that this Sentry Immortal all-in build order is kind of all-in. There's really, there is some ways to actually fall back on it, and of course you have some tech up already, as you can see, already having his first Immortal out, but most of the time, really, there's no way you can macro out of this as a Protoss player. Because you are all in. If you lose all your army, if you lose all your sentries and immortals, there's pretty much no way you can come back in the game. But it is really, really strong. And like PartinG says, if he is 80 in like 2, that means 80 wins and 2 losses. It is really, really strong. Now, in the last few weeks, we have been seeing that this build order isn't impossible to hold off. So, you know, there are some ways Zerg players are trying to deal with this right now. And they also involve by actually staying on 2 bases a little bit longer, like we saw Lowko do, getting double upgrade a little bit earlier and also going for a 3rd base a little bit later, around the 6 or 7 minute mark, I believe he got it. But most of the time, we will actually see Zerg players not having any way to deal with this just yet. And personally, I've been struggling against this build order quite a bit as well, so I'm kind of helping my opponents right here, but you know, it's a pretty cool way to play the game. So now I'm not going to go completely into all the chrono boost spending that he will do in the next part of this episode, but I can tell you that he most of the time actually chrono boosts his nexus until he gets max saturation up. As you can see, he has max saturation pretty much right now in all his bases. He doesn't chrono boost the Forge either. Well, he does chrono boost the Nexus, of course, but he doesn't chrono boost the Forge, and he will put most of his chrono boosts actually going for the robotics facility. So right now we see him moving across the map already, and we are going to look more in depth in this, like I already mentioned, in the 3rd part of this episode. But right now we can see the engagement going on right here for PartinG, putting up some clever force build. But in the 3rd episode we are going to talk about the things that you should be warping in and whatnot, and how to really defend, how to really respond when the Zerg player does some stuff that you might not be expecting. So let's speed up the game a little bit. We can see some cute micro right now by PartinG. PartinG is going to actually lift up some units and whatnot, but in general he just cleans up Sen right here in a very clean way, and there's really no way that he could have won this or could have lost this game by simply doing a really good build order. So let's go into the second part of this StarCraft II study episode, and that is the part where we actually take a look at the exact build order and how we can copy this exact thing and execute the build order ourselves. There we go. Just going to clean up the entire army right here, not losing pretty much everything, and you know, he's just going to clean up, and Sen can GG any moment right now because there's nothing he can do. So there we go, and I see you all in episode number 2.